Bring Her Back is the newest A24 horror film from the Philippou brothers, who previously directed Talk to Me back in 2023, which is a fantastic horror film. So does this one live up to that one? Hey everyone, at the time of this recording, I had just gotten back from a week-long trip in LA and New York for work reasons, but I am back and we're doing more movie reviews. So let's get into today's review. But before we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on push notifications, but let's get into today's review. So I've heard many things about Bring Her Back. I was excited about this movie from the get-go. I mean, even when it was in production and we were seeing set photos, I was excited for this movie. The Philippou brothers really proved themselves to be insanely good horror directors and writers with Talk to Me. I think Talk to Me is one of the finest horror films within the last decade, so obviously I was very excited for this one. A lot of my friends were saying that it is one of the most gross and disgusting body horror films that they've ever seen, so I had a lot riding on my expectations. And, you know, leaving the theater, I think this movie was great. So the Philippou brothers are doing something very different in the horror world of films. These are following traumatic experience. Just like Talk to Me was about a traumatic loss, this one is also about a traumatic loss. And I really like how they mix themes of trauma and horror together. I think it works beautifully well, and they honestly just know how to craft such an interesting and scary psychological story that will probably stick with me just as long as Talk to Me stuck with me. Sally Hawkins is absolutely incredible as Laura, and I mean, this movie, without like getting too into what it's really about, I mean, all I can really say is that this movie is crazy. It is absolutely absurd. A lot of people hate me when I, give a lot of credit to the distributor A24 when really I should be giving all of the, praise to the filmmakers, which I do. I do give praise to the filmmakers, but people really do got to realize how much good A24 is doing in the filmmaking world. They give their filmmakers absolute 100% creative freedom, and that's why they release some of the best films that we see in recent years. Sometimes they're not always going to be great, but for the most part, they're all original stories. And just like Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, they are both very original horror movies, and it's because A24 gives them that creative freedom to do whatever the hell they want. So for those who don't know the Philippou brothers were actually Australian YouTubers before, making Talk to Me, and it was really awesome to see when A24 bought their movie to distribute it in theaters, because, the content world is really growing in such a way that, the future of filmmakers are really the content creators now. And it's just so awesome to see, YouTubers making these big and awesome movies. And Markiplier is actually making a horror movie. I forget what it's called. I think it's like the Iron Fist or something like that. I don't know. But it's really cool seeing all of these like content creators now making really good movies. But that's besides the point. This movie is fantastic. It's scary. It's not jump scary, which I can appreciate. I mean, I don't mind a jump scare every now and then, but at least this movie didn't focus so hard on needing to need jump scares to make it a scary movie. It was a scary movie because of what the story was about. It's absurdly disgusting. I mean, there was moments where I was like, it's just almost like hyperventilating. It was just like, I was feeling that way in some scenes in this movie, and I knew that like this is just amazing filmmaking. They do such a great job with shock factor and really emphasizing terror and horror and gore. They are really good directors and writers. Now, I will say that there is a little bit of predictability in some moments, unlike Talk to Me, where I really didn't predict anything of what was going on. So I was kind of grasping, more onto the story than I was Talk to Me. And I think, I mean, it's not like the biggest thing, but I really was. There were some more predictable moments, but honestly, it wasn't the worst predictability. It's not like, oh my gosh, like I knew everything that was happening. It was just a couple things. So that's like just one little thing that I had. Another little thing that I have is that they were talking about how this movie's not like a cult movie. Like it's not a cult movie. And even though it's not particularly 100% a cult movie, it still definitely falls under that category of being in that same realm of like cultiness. And I think some of it just doesn't get answered in a way that felt like, you know, it was warranted. By the end of the movie, I was kind of like, oh, so that was kind of just there to sort of give us context, but also not really explain much. And although it didn't affect the way, it didn't affect my viewing experience that much, it definitely is still there. And I wish that we had gotten maybe a tad bit more into the cult side of the film. But looking past that, it's really not that big of a deal. What I'm about to talk about is what I mean when I say the Philippou brothers are really good storytellers and writers, because I really appreciated how they made the sister blind. I think it added so much to the traumatic side of the story. So like I said at the beginning of this video, the story is about a brother and sister who go through a very traumatic loss, and that's what pushes us into the rest of the film. But I really, really like the inclusion of the blind sister being a representation of how there are two different sides to how people cope with trauma. The brother Andy is a representation of a sibling that is older and is more understanding of the trauma and is suffering through more of, you know, seeing things around them and not being able to cope with that trauma. The sister Piper is someone that's younger and not able to really process this kind of grief and trauma. And that isn't to say that people that are blind aren't able to process that stuff. I'm just saying it in the sense that with this inclusion to her character, the blindness, I think it really adds to that concept of how someone that is so well aware of what's going on around them, being with someone that doesn't necessarily know what's going on around them, can really be a troubling thing. And the character of Laura, played by Sally Hawkins, is the embodiment of trauma. And that trauma is what Andy is facing. And his sister it's harder for her to see it. And he is very much aware of what's going on. I don't know if that's exactly what the Philippou brothers were trying to do with these characters, but I really do think that each character represents a different level of grief and understanding. There's phenomenal acting in this movie. Sally Hawkins absolutely kills it in her role. She is always great, but she really does give one of the best performances of the year. The Philippou brothers are great. I'm so glad that A24 put the trust into them to making these movies. We're getting Talk to Me 2. I'm very excited for that one because I absolutely loved the first Talk to Me movie, and Bring Her Back is just another standalone fantastic horror film, and they're really doing a great job. So I give them all my respect. This was a really good movie. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on push notifications, but that does bring it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of it. I appreciate every single one of you, but remember, your movie moment is right around the corner. See you in the next video.